He dressed like a showroom, spoke like a CEO, and sold dreams with a handshake and an Instagram DM. Khalif Kairo arrived on Kenya's feeds not just as a hustler, but as a spectacle. Expensive watches, spotless suit jackets, luxury cars in the background, and a confident pitch about importing the best. For many followers, he was the modern self-made success story. A young car dealer who turned social media clout into a lifestyle brand. For others, he became the living example of how fast fame and fortune can attract equal measures of envy, scrutiny, and legal peril. The arc of Khalif Kairo's public life, the rise, the daring displays, the accusations, the courtrooms, the repayments, and the recent headlines about acquittal after multi-million shilling refunds, reads like a cautionary modern fable about entrepreneurship in the age of influencer capitalism. This is the full story, where he started, how he built the brand, what broke down, and what the fallout means for influencers who sell big promises online. Public profiles and interviews identify Khalif Kairo by the given name Joseph Kairo Wambui, often shortened publicly to Khalif Kairo, with origins rooted in Nairobi's hustling neighborhoods where young entrepreneurs learn to sell, network, and survive. He presented himself as a car importer and dealer who could source high-end vehicles for local buyers. A real service in a market hungry for luxury cars, but slowed by long waits and inconsistent supply chains. Khalif's early posts capitalized on the visual language of success. Staged photos next to imported cars, videos of keys being handed over, and lifestyle shots that blended aspiration and accessibility. Social media amplified him. Instagram and X became megaphones where he could reach potential clients directly and bypass traditional showrooms. That direct-to-customer approach helped him scale quickly when it worked. But it also created vulnerabilities. Business conducted through DMs and deposits without the paperwork or safeguards of established dealerships creates friction and risk when something goes wrong. See profiles and interviews where he describes the hustle and early deals. His public handles list Jetman Global and Kairo as projects he's promoted online. Khalif didn't just sell cars, he sold an identity. He framed himself as a founder. Jetman Global and Kairo appear in his public bios, and he leaned heavily into content to convert credibility into customers. Short-form videos showcased delivered cars, stage handovers, and lifestyle montages designed to convince viewers that buying through him was glamorous, fast, and exclusive. That content-first approach fit perfectly with a broader trend in Kenya and across Africa, where influencers blend commerce and persona. Followers become potential customers, and social proof becomes a trust mechanism. He also used collaborations, endorsements, and celebrity interactions to amplify reach. For a while, the formula worked. Demand rose, deposits flowed in, and Khalif's follower numbers and media mentions grew. But the same dynamics that enabled rapid scaling also amplified the consequences when promises weren't met. When clients complained about undelivered vehicles or delayed shipments, the web of DMs, flashy posts, and public testimonials that had been his asset turned into the trail of evidence critics used to argue he'd overpromised. This is a classic influencer commerce dilemma. Visibility accelerates growth, but also magnifies failures. By 2024 to 2025, the first public complaints began to gain traction. Individual clients, influencers, and news outlets reported instances where deposits had been paid for luxury vehicles that were not delivered on schedule, or where follow-up communication broke down. Local media investigations cataloged complaints that, cumulatively, amounted to tens of millions of shillings in disputed deals. Victims went to police and to social media in search of answers. Bloggers and entertainment outlets published accounts that put pressure on authorities to act. For a public figure whose brand was built on the image of hassle-free access to desirable cars, the allegations were devastating because they targeted the core promise of his business. Khalif's supporters pushed back online, claiming misunderstandings, supply chain delays, or that larger import complications were to blame. But where there's money and social proof, accusations become news, and news invites legal scrutiny. This escalation from complaint threads to formal investigations marked the moment the story shifted from influencer drama to potential criminal exposure. The growing number of complaints culminated in arrests and court filings. Kenyan outlets reported multiple charges related to fraudulently obtaining money for vehicle importation, with alleged sums ranging in the millions of shillings. Khalif was arraigned in court and faced several criminal counts in early, mid-2025. Court coverage showed repeated adjournments, bail conditions, and a steady stream of public statements, both from complainants demanding restitution and from Khalif's legal team attempting to refute or contextualize the allegations. These courtroom scenes became a spectacle in their own right. They saturated entertainment news, drove intense social media conversation, and forced brands and partners to reconsider public associations. The legal process also revealed another dynamic. When business is run across porous boundaries between personal brand and formal corporate structures, the law will test whether promises were commercial contracts or social contracts made in public view. For Khalif, courtrooms were where the influencer persona had to be reconciled with evidence, invoices, and witness testimony. Those months in court reshaped public opinion and turned the story into a national conversation about influencer accountability. Faced with mounting legal pressure and the reputational cost of sustained negative coverage, Khalif's public posture shifted toward damage control. Reports indicate that large sums were refunded to some aggrieved clients and that at least part of the dispute resolution happened through repayment agreements and negotiated settlements. One recent piece reports multi-million shilling refunds and an eventual court outcome in which he walked out after making significant repayments. Those repayments and settlements had two immediate effects. They reduced the volume of active complainants and allowed legal teams to negotiate fewer active charges, and they created a public narrative that combined accountability with a transactional resolution. Pay back the money and the legal threat diminishes. That pattern, settle publicly, seek legal closure, and return to social channels, has become familiar in high-profile influencer disputes. Some praised the repayments as the right thing to do for harmed buyers. Others saw them as too little, too late, or as a way to sidestep full legal reckoning. The September 2025 reporting that he had been acquitted after repaying over 5 million shillings demonstrates how financial remediation can alter prosecutorial momentum, though public opinion remained divided. Beyond money and courts, the human cost for Khalif has been stark. Coverage in his own interviews describe strained friendships, lost business partners, and fractured public relationships as investors and friends distance themselves amid legal scrutiny. Several media pieces recount that former associates publicly criticized his business practices, and some partners pursued their own legal remedies. There were also high-profile public relationships that became entangled in the story. National outlets covered his interactions with named exes and associates, and those personal ties were sometimes sensationalized on gossip platforms. In interviews after court appearances, Khalif has spoken candidly about losing friends and investments, portraying a narrative of a founder who took big risks and paid a social price when things went wrong. Whether or not one sympathizes with his account, the fallout underscores how quickly an influencer business can go from profitable to precarious when legal, financial, and social trust are shaken. Khalif has not disappeared. In public interviews, televised sit-downs, podcast appearances, and social posts, he has attempted to reframe the narrative, acknowledging mistakes, emphasizing repayments, and highlighting the volatile nature of car importation business during challenging global supply conditions. He's also leaned on media moments to show a softer, repentant side, emotional admissions, promises to rebuild, and occasional references to faith and support networks. These media moves are part crisis PR and part personal catharsis. At the same time, commentators and critics have pointed to a broader responsibility for influencers who mix commerce and persona. The need for proper company structures, transparent contracts, and professionalized customer service. Khalif's media strategy, to speak, to refund where possible, and to salvage brand partnerships, aims to buy time to rebuild trust. Whether that trust can be fully repaired depends on long-term transparency, independent audits of past deals, and consistent, documented fulfillment of promises. For now, his channel and social presence remain active, offering a mix of lifestyle posts and business updates, while the court story recedes into a chapter rather than the whole book. Khalif's arc is instructive beyond the individual drama. It's a case study in what happens when influencer economics meets high-stakes commerce. Influencers can build demand in minutes, but fulfilling that demand in complex supply chains, imports, customs, logistics, and capital, requires corporate discipline many personal brands lack. Buyers are learning to demand invoices, contracts, and escrow arrangements before sending large deposits to online sellers. And regulators are learning to pay attention when social media becomes a marketplace for big goods. For creators, the lesson is clear. Scale responsibly, document transactions, separate personal brand from corporate liability, and treat public trust as your most valuable asset. For consumers, the takeaway is equally important. Influencer proof, likes, stage handovers, polished posts, is not the same as contractual guarantees. Khalif Kairo's public fall and partial restitution show how quickly glamour can be tested when promises meet paperwork. The final chapter of his story, whether he rebuilds a credible, compliant business or retreats in a niche fame, will be a benchmark for the next wave of African entrepreneurs who choose to sell big-ticket items through personal platforms. Khalif Kairo's story has no neat moral at the moment, only an unfolding record of showmanship, risk, and consequence. He built a brand with camera angles and charisma, wrote it into headlines and legal battles, and then tried to translate public attention into restitution and legal closure. For influencers and consumers alike, his saga is a warning and a lesson. In the age of the personal brand, success is as fragile as it is spectacular, and accountability can arrive as fast as a DM notification. Whether Khalif remakes himself as a compliant businessman, a humbled creator, or remains a polarizing public figure, his story has already reshaped how Kenya watches, buys, and trusts the people it follows online.